Amazing episodes today. My guest is Peter Moore, ex-Liverpool Football Club CEO and person who led some of the most amazing brands out there, including Sega, Xbox, EA Sports. It's in a game. You can probably feel I'm excited. You can probably see some of the Liverpool FC memorabilia in the background. So without further ado, here's conversation with Peter Moore. Hi, Peter. Thanks for being here. You have an incredible story. You went from PE teacher to Liverpool FC CEO, the most iconic brand in football. You've led companies, one of the coolest brands ever in Xbox, Sega, EA Sports, which also means a lot to me. I'm wondering what types of skills, what types of personal traits contributed the most to your success. Maybe some of them can be to some extent replicated or worked on by young entrepreneurs who will be watching this.
Yeah, Mike, I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate to have been offered opportunities to work for great brands. Let's add Reebok into there.
Oh, yeah.
And some people remember Patrick. Great shoes from the old days. Sense of self-belief, maybe self-confidence. And a lot of it, when I reflect upon my career, comes from where I was born. I was born in Liverpool. And for young entrepreneurs, embracing and celebrating from where you come from and all of the traits and personalities that you have, whether it's here in Kraków, anywhere in the world, we have unique traits and personalities that we need to leverage and take advantage of. At Liverpool, as you know, you've been, we're very unique. We're a warm...
Means more.
Yeah, and it does. This means more is not just a slogan. It's who we are. And you'll never walk alone is the same thing. So when I was writing my book, I attributed where I was born in Liverpool, my upbringing in Liverpool, and then moving to Wrexham in North Wales, and being a PE teacher, as you say, which I always say is convincing 35 boys 8 times a day to do something they don't want to do, which is get out and play rugby or play football in the snow. And then I grew up in a pub. My dad owned a pub. And at 11 years of age, put me behind the bar. All the locals and the regulars would come in. He needed a break. But I was dealing with adults when I was 11. So you mix all that together, and it gives you that personality, sense of self-confidence, self-belief. Not that I don't have imposter syndrome.
That's one of my questions, actually.
But you have that self-belief. I'll figure it out. You know, in Silicon Valley, we go fake it till you make it. You know, and so I've been through all of that and the ups and downs in my life. And, you know, the ability, I think, to look at the task in front of you. And an old friend of mine at Reebok always said, you know, how'd you eat an elephant? I always remember the first time he said, one bite at a time. You know, and I've always remembered that is no matter what that task is, you know, start one bite at a time and eventually you get it done.
Awesome. You mentioned an imposter syndrome. That's something a lot of entrepreneurs and young managers struggle with, I believe. You mentioned that your first days at Sega were tricky, as it was something completely new. You had to maybe a little bit fake it till you make it. How do you deal with that? Is it still with you, or after all you've done, after all the success, or does it ever go away?
Well, no, I mean, embrace it. You know, if you don't have imposter syndrome, and let's explain that, which is, I'm not sure I belong here. And so,
like I do now, like my mind is screaming, like,
yeah,
Mike.
but it's healthy because it makes you stretch and it makes you learn faster, and it makes you, I think, work a little harder to get into the swing of things and the rhythm of the business and understanding the vernacular. Video games, as you point out, I'm 44 years of age. I'm a shoe guy, you know, and Reebok we're getting our rear ends kicked by Nike, which during the sneaker wars, as we called it in America. And so what do I do from the sneaker wars? I jump into the console wars of video games. But I'm 44 at that point and knew nothing about video games. But I immerse myself, first of all, in the vernacular, the language, and I'm saying things on a stage that I have no idea what they mean. but eventually I hung around people. I went to the game developer studios. They explained how the games are made.
Right.
And the words that I was using started to make sense.
Right.
And then after a few months, kind of that imposter syndrome started to dissipate. But I think it's healthy to have it. It keeps you sharp. Because if you don't have it, you become cocky, arrogant, and complacent. And because you think you know it all. And that'll come through. And that people will sense that and people don't follow or are not motivated by arrogant people who want to walk in and be the smartest guy in the room, you know. And so, and I was never I was never that anyway, but I never gave off that aura of that.
That's a great trait. Do you still have a halo tattoo?
I have a tattoo on my right arm. Yeah. So, and I tend not to show it, but yeah, I mean, I have
quite a debate if it's still out there
on my right arm. You'll read about it in the book.
Awesome, can't wait. I love your 4C principles. I'm wondering, to be honest, I'll try to adapt some of them in my own company. I really believe that they bring value, and I'm wondering, how do you trickle down those values to 800 or hundreds of team members that you have? It's hard.
Yeah. So the 4Cs you referred to are the 4Cs. Retrospectively, when I look back at what I did at Liverpool, which was an interesting time, I arrived at Liverpool with not much of a job description. And again, I'd never been in football. I mean, I love football, and I've been involved.
Oh, you were a great right back.
Yeah, I was a great right back. But being a great right back doesn't give you the benefit of running the biggest football club in the world. So I figured out, once I got on the ground in Liverpool, what was required, and did an analysis, looked at the people, talked to the stakeholders, walked the streets, because I live there and our office is there. And believe me, when you walk the streets of Liverpool and you're a CEO, you get stopped every 10 yards. And
should have bought Van Dijk, right?
That's exactly right. You've read that bit as well. So from the perspective of understanding, retrospectively, when I came back to California, I thought, this is what I did. The 4Cs were community. Football without fans is nothing.
All right.
So embracing the community, which I did, a little bit to the chagrin of my owners, I engage with the fans, and because my owners are American and they're absentee,
right? And
I'm on the ground, I'm walking around Liverpool, and so I felt that, particularly a club like Liverpool and Liverpudlians, people of Liverpool,
right?
They have a voice, they want to be heard, and they want to engage in conversation. You can't be standoffish. You can't be in an ivory tower somewhere. And so community at every level, myself, my wife, we built our own foundation for charity. I've done well in life, and I had the ability to give back, and we can talk about that. The next thing was civic. I realized what an impact Liverpool Football Club has on the city of Liverpool.
Yeah.
And so very quickly, my two best friends, who are still two of my best friends, were the mayor of Liverpool and the chief of police of Liverpool. I realized they were very important people as regards keeping the club going and functioning, as well as we were doing a lot for the city. The other thing I did was I retained Deloitte to, I commissioned an economic impact report. When I first I'm a Silicon Valley guy, so I deal in data. I get to Liverpool and I say to my staff, man, when there's a game on here, you can't get a restaurant reservation, you can't find a taxi, planes are flying in from all over the world. This place is hopping. And I said, well, how much money do we bring in on game day weekends? And they go, a lot. I said, well, that's not a good answer. And so we brought in Deloitte, and they spent 3 months analyzing what they call gross value add. How much money Liverpool Football Club added to the economy of the city of Liverpool? It was nearly £500 million. Now, and that is 8 years ago when I did this.
Crazy.
So the civic relationships outside of football were important. The next was culture of the 800 people that didn't kick a ball for Liverpool, but wore that badge. And building a culture that we all in it together. I wrote a manifesto about what we stood for as a group of people, as a staff. And I tried to, and I would do town halls all the time and kind of ask me anything. And I wanted to be very visible. So that culture of accountability, that the fan is first, that we're one team working together.
Right.
It's behind the scenes for football fans. They don't realize what it takes to put on a game. You add to those 800 people the 2,500 people that work on game day at Anfield, the stewards, the catering staff, security, ticketing, parking. I mean, it all adds up. But you've got to have all those people understanding where the North Star is, where we're heading, and how we support. We're the team behind the team,
Right.
you know. And so that culture was something I focused on. And finally, of course, commercial. We got to make money. The virtuous cycle of football is you make money, you know, commercial revenues, game day revenues. You get obviously your TV money, which is huge in the Premier League, and your UEFA money for Champions League. You buy better players. You sell players. You buy players. You know, you buy a Virgil van Dijk. You buy an Alisson Becker, and they prevent goals being scored. And Mohamed Salah and Bobby Firmino and Sadio Mane are scoring goals. And this virtuous cycle is then sponsors spend more money because they want to be associated with you. They bring in more money, you buy better players, and you win more games. And this virtuous cycle goes that way. And Liverpool is, I don't want to say it's unique, but we're a self-sustaining football club. We don't overspend in relation to financial fair play, as was known, now profit and sustainability rules. And even though this transfer window has been amazing, it's all within what's known as PSR.
Yeah, the net spend is not as high as...
And look, yeah, we spend a lot of money, but we also got a lot of money for players they're going out. And as well, we've made a lot of money. So those were the 4 C's that when I reflected back after I left Liverpool in 2020, the COVID season, as I'm starting to think about writing it all down, those were my 4 C's. And I still think they hold firm today.
Yeah, it's a brilliant framework for pretty much any business. And I love that you've just wrote down the values that you live by, and not just, you know, some of the companies just add values or add like aspirations. We want to be, you know, big on culture. We want to be big in civic, but this is who you actually were before you just wrote it down. So I'm wondering, what was the toughest moment to implement those? You know, those are not easy to implement in an organization like Liverpool, where there's a lot of emotion. It's like a religion.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you learn, and a good job I come from video games, which is very passionate as well. Gamers are passionate, but football's emotional. You know, a lot of the mood in the office is determined by how the team is playing. Very unusual for any company that things can change every weekend, right? A little bit, you know, was the British staidness of this is what we are and this is who we are. And even though I'm born and bred in Liverpool, I come across as American. I sound American. You know, when I first went there, I said I'm from Liverpool. They go, "No, you are." And I had to prove that, you know, and I figured out my origin story, you know. But there was a little bit, you know, internally, this feels too American. I changed the organizational structure so that we have, and people think of it as American, but, you know, directors, vice presidents, senior vice presidents, which is a classic corporate structure, so that everybody knew what everybody did and understood the hierarchy. So there's a little bit of internal pushback that you just have to plow through and say, no, this is the way it's going to be. And you're going to like it.
Amazing. You mentioned the virtuous cycle in relation to commercial. I'm wondering, and this is pretty much something that I wanted to ask, which is tricky, but I wonder, what do you think about Manchester United situation? Like, it feels like they are in a vicious cycle of some sorts, and I remember Liverpool used to be in some sort of a maybe not that similar, but somewhat similar troubles before you came in. And How do you reverse that? How do you break the cycle and lift people up from just expecting, bad results?
Yeah, I mean, United, obviously one of the great clubs in the world, one of the great brands in the world, and they have that going for them. But, you've got an iconic figure like Sir Alex Ferguson, who leads them to 13 Premier League titles, and then your succession plan doesn't work. And I think, trying to think of this, all of the managers, I think David Moyes was the first one that came, and then you think about, obviously, Louis van Gaal, and you think about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and now Amorim and Mourinho. I mean, it's just, they're, I don't want to say they're throwing mud against the wall to see what sticks, and then the culture in the club, the same as the staff that I had at Liverpool, seemed to be eroding as well. And so, but a lot of that is, all of a sudden you're not winning. You expect to win, you're not winning, and that then erodes confidence in the club itself, and ownership is not there. The Glazers are not physically there. Ed Woodward leaves, and then you've got this procession of executives that seem to come and go, and you're not providing structure and stability. In Liverpool's case, my predecessor, Ian Ayre, was there for 10 years. I was there for 3.5. Billy Hogan took over from me. We're not bringing people. I was the only outsider, if you will. And so you've got this sense of stability.
Right.
And then you've got an ownership group in Fenway Sports Group. They're sports owners. They understand, albeit baseball and ice hockey in their case. They understand how sports teams work. And so you have that. Now, theoretically, the Glazers should have the same thing. They have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. But I think that, their engagement was limited, and then the fans start to turn on you. And that's when it got ugly, I think, for Manchester United. Right. You start to see the green and yellow scarves, and you start to Glazers out. And it becomes this rising tide of discontent at every level of the club. And look, it's good for football that they come back and get back to where they once belonged. But it's been tough for them. And you think about some of the games we played against them recently, we scored a lot of goals against Manchester United, and even this start to this season, Grimsby. I mean, these are the things, not huge to be knocked out of the Carabao Cup, but Grimsby doing it when you're in this tough situation that they already are. Because last year, Plymouth Argyle knocks us out of the FA.
Yeah.
There's kind of a shrug of the shoulders, but Grimsby, it became symptomatic of the problems that they've got as a football club. And so, look, as a football fan, you just hope that they get back, and Liverpool versus Manchester United is always the #1 fixture each year. It's a great game, home and away. And I want it to be back where it was, which is not that many years ago, where we're knocking heads with each other and on equal footing. It's not the case right now.
Unfortunately not. Although some of the supporters are happy about it, some of the Liverpool supporters are happy about it, but I believe that we have more in common with Manchester United fans that we maybe care to admit.
I mean, people will take great, joy in seeing clubs suffer. And look, I don't mind beating them twice a year. I like that, but it's a great club with a great fan base, a global fan base,
right?
And it's the same as some Liverpool fans would like to see Everton relegated. No, I mean, you want Everton to be in the Premier League.
We do.
Yeah, and I always joke and say, where else are we going to get a guaranteed 6 points a year, which we don't actually, but it's good for the city. You need Liverpool and Everton, both competing. The derby matches, their new stadium, the Hill Dickinson Stadium is magnificent. Yeah, you need both teams there.
Makes sense. So I want to maybe switch gears a little bit. I want to ask, how do you transform organization that's very traditional, that's very old, like Liverpool, into the digital age. You know, when you took over Liverpool, the company was sort of like old school. Like I remember trying to order something from Liverpool FC shop, and it was super tricky to order anything to Poland. Right now, you know, within 3 days, I get my bag, and I can just order for mobile. I watch most of the preseason games for apps.
Yep.
You did that. How do you squeeze so much stuff in 3.5 years? Because typically in organizations like this, it takes years.
Yeah, when I got there, there was already a realization, and I'm coming in a little bit on this wave of being a digital guy, a video game guy that understood managing large communities, which we did at EA. I mean, hundreds of millions of people interacting with our games every month, and you were one of them. So it is very much, yeah, and so it's very much, how do you embrace that? But you need the technology. You need the, and at EA, I went through this entire digitization period where, when I arrived at Electronic Arts in 2007 as president of EA Sports, and I loved that, and we rebuilt that brand and the FIFA brand, and you know, obviously Madden, NFL football, and NHL, and more recently UFC coming on board, and Tiger Woods golf during that time. But we moved away from selling you a disc at a retail store to just directly going to your hard drive. Now, that is powered by consoles with bigger hard drive memories, because even when I was at Xbox 360, it was only 2 gigabytes or maybe 5, you know, and now it's terabytes. And then high-speed broadband. So we went away from our customer being Walmart or Target or Best Buy or GameStop, and it being you. And that took hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in infrastructure, and a realization, which you have to have as a company, that this is the future. First ever meeting I went to at EA, I was still a Microsoft employee, was in New York. I shall never forget it. And it was called the Burning Platform. And my boss, John Riccatello, said, ask my boss at Microsoft, can we get Peter here? Because, you know, it's an important role. I know he's still working for you, and we don't have him as an EA employee, but this meeting's important. And the Burning Platform concept in business is pretty simple. And so the first slide he puts up, I always remember this, is an oil rig in the North Sea, you know, off the north of England coast. And the next slide, it's on fire, you know, and this is the concept in business of a burning platform, in which you may be doing just fine right now in your business, but you can see change is coming. The business models are changing. Technology is fueling a different way that we're interacting with our customer. Our customers are changing. And John pointed out, in those days, we were selling tens of millions of discs, and we were doing just fine. But he could see digital coming. And so companies then have a decision to make. I don't care what's coming. I'm hitting my numbers this quarter. I'm going to hit my numbers this year. I'll worry about that when it happens.
Comfortable. Or
you make the change and you invest, and you have a couple of tough years, which we did at EA. And because all of any money we were making was then going into back-end network infrastructure, customer service. We hadn't dealt with customers because the retailers deal with customers. Global billing systems. Unfortunately, letting go a lot of people who were salespeople that sold discs to retailers. Warehouses being shut down because we didn't need warehouses. What we needed was server farms and data centers. And so I've been through that transition. And when I got to Liverpool, it was already underway. At least the realization is that we needed to, because I was like you, I'm living in California, and I go, I can't get my New Balance stuff or whatever. And it wasn't easy on the app, and the websites were a bit clunky. And so we partnered with IBM, and we developed a project called Fan Connect. And I was very much in all of those meetings, adding whatever technical input that I could, but a very talented group we put together. And we brought in an IBM executive in England, they call it seconded, brought in, and Drew Crisp ended up being a Liverpool FC employee. And the goal was, and to be fair to the ownership who gave us the capital investment to do it, was to redo our mobile sites as regards the UI, the UX, certainly get our website fixed, start investing in even more content. Liverpool FC TV.
Inside Anfield, right?
Inside Anfield is brilliant. I love it as a fan still, and I certainly loved it there because fans love. We're in the tunnel, you know, and you're a little bit of a fly on the wall, and you're watching what Virgil is doing and Mo is doing, and all the little traditions of the players, and fans love it. And so content, you know, and engagement, particularly for a global football club. And the other thing that I did was set what I think we are with our employees. And I always remember writing the manifesto one night, and then it came to me over a glass of red wine, these 4 words: local heart, global pulse. That's who we are. And massive local heart. It's Liverpool. Everything comes from Anfield and Bill Shankly and You'll Never Walk Alone. But boy, fans all over the world. Fans all over the world. And in my first few games as CEO, people didn't quite recognize me early on. I would walk around with my wife, Debbie, walk around the stadium, listen, watch. Who's doing what? Where are we getting fans from? Go to the store. Literally walk all around the stadium, get a feel for the vibe. How fast are they coming in? How do we get them in earlier? And I'm hearing 15 different languages, you know, and obviously a lot of Scouse, but I'm hearing particularly Scandinavian, and I'm realizing how global this football club is. I also realized, and this is where the digital thing came in, probably 99% of our global fan base will never get to Anfield. They live vicariously through watching on television, watching content on the web. They just can't get there. You can't get a ticket. It's expensive. You know, if you're in Bangkok, you know, or here we have our official supporters club in Warsaw, right. You know, and how do you get a ticket? And so what you do is you bring Anfield to them. Not easy, but you create content. You're at Melwood now, Kirby, every morning with the TV crews. You're doing stuff with your sponsors, Nivea, New Balance in those days, then Nike, that engage the players and give the human side of the players. And then you elevate your foundation to do good in the community. And you put that on a pedestal. All of that required digital infrastructure, film crews that knew what they were doing, and then the ability to put it out on a global basis, almost in real time, if necessary, that, you know, the training would be available to look at pictures, and fans want to see who's out there, and more importantly, wait, where's Mo? You know, and panic ensues, you know, all around the world. You know, and so we spent a lot of time and money in rebuilding this engagement. And the lesson I learned in video games was the inverted funnel of acquire, engage, and I never say this football, monetize. Never say that. But it's the inverted funnel that we would do in video games. And acquire in the later years that, well, let's give our games away for free, right? You know, it's not all the time, but let's look at what free-to-play looks like, right? And then the game better be good. The game better engage you, and because you play it once and put it away. So you always in video games look at day 1, day 7, you know, retention.
Right.
And then the more you engage, the more likely you are to spend some money. You know, I want to buy that skin. I want to buy that weapon. I want to buy a map. I want to spend some money on downloadable content. And the more engaged you are, the more chances you're monetized. Because if you don't monetize, you're no worth to the developer. You're just playing the game on their servers. So that, and that applied to football as well. Acquire, engage, monetize, AEM.
I loved how they correspond with your 4C principles, because it seems like 4C supplement the funnel as well with
oh yeah, no, absolutely. Well, those are at every level of that. There's all 4 of those C's are involved, and you need to make sure that you're doing it. But yeah, if you look at that inverted funnel and then you add the 4 C's at every level, it's not hard to see how it all coalesces.
I'll keep this analogy of burning platform in mind, because it feels like these days with AI booming and changing businesses on daily basis, it feels like this sort of best practice could be handy for a lot of companies that for now their business is good, but there is a looming change on the
If
horizon.
you're not embracing some level of artificial intelligence in your business, I don't care how big or small you are. If you're a one-man mom and pop, as we call it in America, there are ways that you can, I mean, simply using ChatGPT to give you more efficient ways, asking questions. Again, imposter syndrome. I don't know what to do. There are plenty of platforms now available to you that will give you some suggestions, right? And the more, as you know, the more you engage with it, the more it knows about you. Case in point, I uploaded my book, you know, to an AI platform, and it analyzed it for me. And so when I need to maybe do some marketing or talk to somebody about elements of it, I'll ask it, you know, my PE teacher days, and it will churn out, you know, well, you should think about your days and think about these 5 things to talk about. And look, I can do it myself, but it's like, it makes me more efficient. And it's also good to have your little chat bot, you know, looking at things slightly differently than you would, you know, and analyzing. So, you know, if you do have a book or something, you upload it and then it knows, and I can have a conversation with it.
Wow. Yeah, I'm super impressed. You are so handy with with AI. Most
not hard.
Maybe that's your business nature, but most authors wouldn't upload their book to ChatGPT, worried about, you know, copyrights and stuff. But you just leverage this as a opportunity to
look. I'm not selling millions of copies of this thing, but I think
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not sharing it with I don't believe, but maybe if you should try it. You know, send me a copy of Game Changer by Peter Bohr, see what it does. But I think from the perspective of what I need to get out of it is, again, I've never written a book, and you talk about imposter syndrome. I go, all right, and this took me 2 years. And worked with people and did a lot of interviews that I wasn't involved in. And so I had a collaborator that said, if you ask him a question, you're going to get a different answer than if I ask a question, because you were there. And he also said, you were there and Michael was there, and Michael's going to tell you a different version that you either have forgotten or didn't interpret at the time. And he was exactly right. And that's how you eventually put together 248 pages of your life. You know, I remembered most of it myself, but a lot of the people along the way have helped me put it all together.
Outstanding. You mentioned you are a Silicon Valley guy. I love how you mentioned data as crucial for any business. And I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs, a lot of young managers feel like the data is mostly for for large corporations to optimize, you know, revenue from 6% to 10%. Like, I wonder what's your approach here? You mentioned this a couple of times, but I would love to expand it.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Again, if I can refer to the book, I started to think about the ways that I wrote the book. So what happens, you kind of write a book, you get a manuscript, you start looking for a publisher. And it wasn't easy, because my book is it an immigrant story of lad from Liverpool goes to America? Is it a footwear story? Shoe guy. I was in athletic footwear for close to 20 years. I'm a shoe dog. Is it a video game story? Is it a Liverpool story? Is it a football story? Is it a human story of my life and all of the challenges and all of the things and the imperfections? So publishers would tell me, don't know what to do with it. And went to eventually got a suggestion again from my collaborator, said, try the University Press. So I went to Liverpool University Press, started there, and they analyzed it and said, we need another 5% of Liverpool in there, because what happens is they will get a peer reviewer out, and they will send the manuscript, and that person is anonymous to me, but that person came back in an analytical way and say, you know what, I've read it, I think you've got to add more Liverpool, not the football club necessarily, the city and your upbringing. So they took a statistical, they analyzed the book and said 5% more, and started to. So I wrote more Liverpool stuff anecdotes, analogies. Why Liverpool? You know, is why I talk a lot about being from Liverpool, even though I left there in 1965 to return 50 years later. And so data was got it right, got the book right. Even though it's creative writing, there was a data set behind it that said, we think if you just pump this thing up 5%, A, then we'll give you a publishing deal, and B, it will be more interesting to a greater group of people. And it was data driven.
It's amazing. I wonder, like, you've been through COVID with Liverpool. Wonder, were there any unpopular decisions that had to be made? When running a football club, you are highlighted probably more than any CEO in any organization out there. Like, what were those decisions? How do you cope with so much pressure?
Two jumped to mind straight away. The first one was my trademark group said, we need to trademark Liverpool in a football context, because we're watching counterfeit, we're watching people put Liverpool and a soccer ball on a shirt, and we can't protect it. And the inference is it's Liverpool Football Club, which is our intellectual property, but there's nothing we can do about it because we don't own Liverpool.
Right.
And so, me being me, all right, let's get after it. Let's go and file a trademark application, which within 2 hours, fan groups saw, and then there was uproar because they felt that the football club was trying to trademark the city and all of the challenges that would create. In fact, my first meetings were with local football clubs, South Liverpool, AFC Liverpool, that were scared that we would own their trademark. That was not going to be the case. But then meetings with local trade merchandise, the fan groups that have T-shirts that allude to being Liverpool at a fan level, and not necessarily taking the Liver Bird and LFC, although in some instances they did, but the ability to put Liverpool. And I assured them this was not about that. This is about offshore counterfeiters. This is about people who have no linkage to Liverpool whatsoever, but were making hundreds of thousands of dollars inferring Liverpool. And the only way to stop it was to own, in a football context, the word Liverpool. Well, uproar ensued. And it was educational to me. And I enjoy a good intellectual fight. And I met with people, and I went on TV and the radio and explained what we were trying to do. But there's none so deaf that will not hear. And they didn't want to hear it. And in the end, the British trademark group said, no, we're not going to grant it, which is fine, you know, but that became controversial. And then COVID hits, to your point, and we go into a situation where we're going to furlough our staff and pay them 100%. And the club was going to pay a portion, and then we were going to, as many companies did, use government money to supplement that. So say to our staff, you're furloughed, don't touch your laptops, put your phones away, you're not working, we're going to pay you 100%. But the uproar then, a little bit, and I'm used to it in America because government workers get furloughed when, like twice a year, it seems, the U.S. government says you're furloughed for like 2-3 days because you're not getting paid, and then we'll bring you back on. So I'm used to it. I realize it's not something in Britain that they're very used to. So a lot of people said, I'd never heard of the word before. And they assumed it was like, you're temporarily firing everybody. It wasn't the case. But the bigger issue was we were using government money, which we, rightly or wrongly, felt was our justification because we were paying plenty of payroll taxes and corporate taxes to the UK government. But big football club makes lots of money, and you know, socialist city, and in the end, you know, we backed away from that pretty quickly, and I apologize for you know, my American owner is a little confused, like, what is wrong with this? But yeah, let's, and we agree, and then we paid everybody 100%.
Pretty unusual to apologize for someone. And
yeah, there've been a lot of apologies. Oh yeah, no, I apologize. You'll find it on the web somewhere, and look,
I remember that, but it's still unusual for somebody in your position to to go into.
Look, I work for a Japanese company where you apologize for everything. Japanese culture is very much, we're sorry, and we take accountability. And I lived in that culture for a long time between Sega and Xbox, where I was responsible for Japan. So I watched with interest how Japanese CEOs would do the deep bow when something, to me, seemed relatively minor, but something had gone wrong, and they apologized on camera to their employees and to their customers. And so it wasn't a big deal. Look, it's a mea culpa. I'm guilty. We're guilty. I'm the CEO. Whether it was my fault or not doesn't matter. You apologize. And we misread the situation.
I admire that. I admire that. I try to live by that as well. There was a big conversation last year in Silicon Valley after Paul Graham's, one of the popular VCs and investors, wrote an essay on something called founder mode. Pretty much a discussion whether CEO should be hands-on or whether there should be a more traditional approach, more like a approach it's promoted by business schools, that you hire great people and you delegate. What would be your position?
There's no one size fits all. Look, I'd be more the latter. I would be very much, I've always believed in hiring good people, but at the same time, I like to know what's going on. And I like to be in meetings. Liverpool is a good example. I was in all of the Fan Connect meetings, understanding what we were doing with the mobile app and how we were getting our back end. I was in all of those meetings, operational meetings. I love being in rooms with people who are surfacing ideas, and there's energy. And my day at Liverpool was meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. And I didn't think my position was influencing things. Right. I think when I go in, I'm just one of the guys, and if you're not in the meeting, I don't know how you learn what's going on. So I'm very much about that. I never thought of it as being cramping the style or the outcome at all. So I think in Silicon Valley terms, with that more entrepreneurial look, we're a very mature company, so it's a little different, right? But if I was, good example, football club that I'm the founding owner, Santa Barbara Sky, clean sheet of paper, club doesn't exist. I see the word Santa Barbara Sky in a list of names. I go, that. Then I start building. I mean, I am hands-on. I mean, everything, because this is my baby. And you hire good people as well, but every step of the way, I was very, very involved. Now, again, to your point, there's two schools of thought. Are you cramping the autonomy and freedom of your staff by being in all these meetings, and they feel like they can't do anything until you say yes? Or are you showing them that you care and you're interested and you're not lazy and you're not going to sit there and wait for your equity to come and make you a multimillionaire? I'm very much more likely to be in those meetings.
Awesome. I've heard that you've invited some of the Santa Barbara fans to for a meeting to learn more about their passion, their culture. It sounds like pretty much hands-on CEO.
When we first got going, it's a couple of years ago now, but we realized the Hispanic community is very important to us in Santa Barbara. Brought into my home. Come on in. My wife's half Mexican. Her mom is making enchiladas and tamales and quesadillas, and come and sit in my living room. Got a big TV, and here's what we're going to do to build this football club. So yeah, I mean, I think, again, that goes back to community. It's one of the, it starts off 4 C's, start right there. And I think that, I'm a working class lad, and I find it difficult to float above it all and let it all happen underneath me, or hope it all, because I'll lie awake. I hope that. What they call the 3 a.m. conversation with yourself of what's going on. So now I'm more likely, for better or worse, to be in all of those meetings.
Sweet. Why Wisła Kraków? We are here at Wisła Kraków Stadium, the shop.
Yeah.
I get the Santa Barbara. It's where you live. But why here? How this happened?
How did it happen? So I'm a video game guy. I meet a very talented individual, primarily online, that was building a very innovative game using the Monopoly IP, and this is a couple of years ago. And he says, can you help? And I'm advising a number of people. As you get older, you have an obligation, you know, and I've got a certain amount of experience in helping people think through. So Zbigniew of Reality Games reaches out and says, we're doing this, we're doing a Monopoly game. Monopoly Go is already up and running and it's massive. Monopoly is great intellectual property, but he wants to do a different game mechanic of discovery and geo chasing and bringing retailers in. As if I walk past a store and I'm playing the game, it will offer me a 10% discount. And so you've got the gamification of commerce, if you will, as well as exploring and collecting, which people love to do. So think Pokemon Go, but think modernized. And Zbigniew said, hey, I want you to meet this guy, Yaroslav. He owns, as I would say then, Wisła, Krakow. And he'd like you to come to the stadium and walk around the store and get a little bit of input from you as the Yaroslav and I hit it off and start talking, and I walk around this stadium for a couple of hours with him and point out things that can be done better or Maya things he's already doing. We're both kind of tech, and he's got so much energy, as you well know, and we talk a lot about artificial intelligence and his company Cinerize, and it just went like this. I loved the city. I walked around the city, stayed here for 3-4 days, and it felt a little bit of like a Liverpoolish story of as I learned more about the tough times of only a few years ago. And you've got somebody that absolutely loves the club in Yaroslav and has got the wherewithal and the energy to bring it back to where it belongs. It's a multi-generational football club, and by that I mean people talk about their dad and their granddad, and you know, it's about to be 120 years old, and it's pulling more people in when they're winning, which obviously we are, than any other club in Poland. And so how do we leverage that? How do we get back to Ekstraklasa and where this club absolutely belongs, and eventually get back in Europe, you know? And so that was a great challenge. I went back and we started corresponding, and he said, I want you to, be a part of the club, be a part of the ownership group, help me, come to Krakow when you can, and here I am, and immerse myself in everything Wisła, and that's what we've done this week, with my wife with me as well, who is very instrumental as my wing woman at Liverpool and getting involved in the LFC Foundation, and still is in working with elderly people and she's a yoga teacher as well as being a junior sommelier. So and she's about to do yoga here with some of the players.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. So that's why. And again, these are things that as you look, I'm in my 70s, and it's like these are things that challenge you. You're learning something every day. You know, I'm engaged. I love to go to places not only through football, but what does football mean for the people? What is this city all about? You know, I'm British, so I know history, and I know what tough times Poland has had when you think about the last 100 years since World War I. On my first visit, I went to Auschwitz and Birkenau, right? Last night, I'm in the salt mines, which was incredible, you know? And so it's not just here for football, but immersing yourself in everything. Krakow, you know, and I can't wait for the game tomorrow.
Peter, thank you so much. Thank you for being so generous of your time. Your book will be out on 28th of September. I, for one, can wait to for my copy. It will arrive to home, but I'll hopefully get one today, maybe to start to read even before the release of the video. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me that you found the time, and yeah, fingers crossed for Wisła, fingers crossed for Santa Barbara, for your foundation, for the great work you're doing within Liverpool. Yeah, thank you so much.
Michael, it's been a pleasure, and always remember, you'll never walk alone.
Will do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.